We are talking with Dave Golikoff, senior sports columnist for AskMen.com, and Scott Kellen from SixCentSports.com, previewing the wild card playoff games in the NFL here on the SBR TV NFL Experts Roundtable. All right, we just got finished talking about a game where we were in unanimous agreement that there's decent value. Now we're going to move on to a game where I see almost no value. It looks like a huge stay-away game for me, and that's Detroit at the Saints. Saints are a 10.5-point favorite, and of course, you look at their record at home this year, they've just been absolutely dominant at home, so you might want to lean that way, but then again, it is a playoff game. You never know what's going to happen in playoff games. It's always a little bit risky taking a huge favorite in the playoffs. The total, you know it's going to be a high-scoring game, but 58.5, that's an enormous total. Scott Kellen, you have any take on these lines? Any leans?
No, I think you said. I think the line makes it difficult. We got a couple of really good situations that the Saints would apply in if they're favorites of 9 or less, and then one other situation as long as they're favorite of less than 10. So basically 9.5 or less. So if for some reason this line came down, I don't expect it to, but if it came down to under 10, I would probably jump on New Orleans. The Saints have won every home game, I think, this year by at least 7 points or more. They've scored 30 or 31 points or more in every home game. So you can mark down a couple of things here. The Saints are going to get their 30 or 31 points minimum. And then the question becomes, can Detroit get at least 20 points? The better play here might be in the Saints over total points as long as you get less than 35. And, I don't know if the prop's out there widely available, but in Vegas, I've hit this prop many times this year. I actually hit it back in the NFC Championship game against the Vikings as well. But they have Drew Brees. Many times they've had him over 2.5 touchdowns, like plus 145. To me, if you get plus money in that, you should take that all day because he has a very good chance to get 3 TDs in this game throwing. So that might be where some of the better plays are. As far as the total, different scenarios I look at, I see anywhere from 55 to 62 points, which is about where this thing is. But I just can't play over a 59 or a 60, or this thing may close at 61, because if a couple things go bad, they're not going to get to that number. At the same time, they could obviously score 70 points, so I'm certainly not going to play the under. But I would only look at the Saints in this game, and only if the line came down. And like I said, I think the better plays here might be on the total points for the Saints, or maybe you can find a Drew Brees prop or some other interesting props that may be applicable, because the Saints are going to get their points.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. And a lot of times in these games with very accurate, tight spreads, the props do tend to, like in the Super Bowl, the props tend to have a ton of value. Dave Golikoff, what do you think? You think New Orleans team total over might be the best bet of all here?
Well, I'm actually not going to overthink this. I really do like the Saints in this game. Not a huge play. I just see this as two teams going in opposite directions. Detroit really did not want this matchup, so I really think that if Detroit gets down 7 or 14 points early, they may pack it in. Last week, Detroit had the chance against Matt Flynn and a bunch of backups for the Packers to not only secure the 5th seed in the NFC, but avoid the Saints. They could have played at New York or at Dallas at the time. They didn't know who they were going to play, but those were much more favorable matchups. All the Detroit papers and the coaching staff and the team talked about how important that game was for them, and their defense just really crapped the bed against Matt Flynn. 480 yards, 6 touchdowns. Right. Record-setting day for the Packers offense. Now they get Drew Brees again. And, I know you can look back to the first matchup and say it was 31-17, closer game than expected. But really, the Saints did whatever they wanted in that game. It could have been, they could have run up the score a lot more. They called off the dogs in that game until they really had to step on the gas. I just don't see Detroit getting any stops whatsoever. And given the mindset of the two teams, I think there's going to be more quit in Detroit than there will be quit in the Saints, i.e. taking the foot off the gas in this game. The last point that I want to mention is that the Saints completely crapped the bed in the NFC Wild Card round last year. They came out flat against the Seattle Seahawks, and trust me, they will not come out with the same effort this week. That loss has stung all season long for them. They've used it as a motivational point several times this year. They're going to remember that effort from last year, and they will not call off the dogs in this game. I like the Saints minus the points.